Hello beauties, this is Exio and welcome to my video. In this video, I will be reviewing several different types of gaming controllers and their accessibility to someone who has a chronic disability. So let me start talking about myself for a little bit. I was diagnosed when I was 4 years old with a rare bone disorder called multiple hereditary exostosis, or MHE for short. MHE is a rare bone disorder that forms benign bone tumors on almost all the bones in the body. It can impact almost all the bones in the body. And it's an interesting condition. It impacts people different ways. There are people who have the condition that only form a few tumors in the body and are relatively not impacted by them. And then there are those who are impacted severely by it, who have, 50 to 100 or even more than 100 tumors in the body. And it can cause the limbs of the body to grow in ways that they're not supposed to. Common issues are your legs can develop different lengths. So can the arms. One common thing that I see in MHE is with the lower forearms. As you're growing, your arm tends to bow in one direction. One of the bones tends to grow faster than the other bone. That's because of the way that the tumors form near the growth plates and impact the growth of the bone. When I was growing up, I've had three surgeries on my arm to shorten the longer bone to straighten the wrist out. And recently, I actually had to have the same procedure done on my left wrist. That was a couple of years ago. Um, and there's several other things. If I actually hold my arms out, you can kind of see it. I'm not really good with this camera. It's a little too close. But my right arm is a good 3-4 inches shorter than my left arm. People can have that same type of stuff happen in their legs, or their legs bow, or the right leg will grow longer than left leg, and vice versa. The other thing that is commonly associated with MHE2 is arthritic type pain, especially in the joints. So for me, I get a lot of arthritic pain in my fingers and my wrists. Actually, I can get it in my right elbow. I have a radial head dislocation of the right elbow. I actually had to have both my hips totally replaced because of severe pain that I was experiencing in that. And I get it in my knees, ankles, shoulders. I mean, just about every joint in the body I can get this type of arthritic type pain with. And I'm a huge computer gamer. I love playing computer games. My Steam library has over 1,000 games in it. I play the PlayStation. My preferred console, or my preferred platform for gaming is the computer. I love doing PC gaming. So I get all my games pretty much off of Steam. I do use Origins and Ubisoft on occasion, and Xbox on the PC to get some of my games, but Steam is where I get a majority of my games. But I have a hard time sometimes playing the computer games with the keyboard and mouse, so I have to play a lot of games that support the controllers. Uh, and so I have gone through several different types of controllers, trying to find one that feels very comfortable for me, allows me to play the games, for the longest amount of time, because games are a way of relieving stress, especially for someone with a disability who can't get out, walk around a lot, is limited physically. Games are a way to interact with people. You have multiple massive multiplayer online games where you can interact with guild and hundreds of people. You got online social communities. Games are just a really good outlet for distracting yourself and relieving stress. And for someone with a disability, it can be very difficult, because if you can't do that, especially if you use games for that, it just adds more stress. And so, what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a video here to go through several of the different controllers that I've used, review them kind of in the order of the ones that I don't like to the ones that I absolutely love, and kind of show what works, what doesn't work with the controller design, and why, it doesn't work for me, or why it works for me. So just a disclaimer before we continue. I'm going to be basing all of my reviews off my personal experience. What works for me may not work for you, and what works for you may not work for me, and that's okay. With disabilities, we run into this a lot where, trying to find things that work for us is an individual process. And so by sharing our experiences, we get to learn from each other and find new things to try, and things like, oh, wait, this may not work, or hey, that's a really great idea. Let me try it. So I just wanted to create this video, just kind of give my experiences in this. So let's go ahead and get started. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start looking at the PlayStation controller. Now, again, I focus mainly on the PC gaming, but I also have a PlayStation 4 that I like to play, like the Final Fantasy games, and some other RPG style games. I absolutely love playing on the PlayStation 4. So I'm going to look at the PlayStation 4 controller first. Now, this can kind of go into the PlayStation 5. The controller design is very similar. PlayStation 3, 2, 1, I mean, they all use the basic same design on it. So pretty much, I think the review here would go across all those different platforms. Now, this is my least favorite controller. I do love some of the concepts with it. I love the motion sensing in it. So like here in games, you tip the controller around or you shake it and it reacts in the game. I absolutely love that. I love the little touchpad that they have here. It adds a lot more interactivity in the games and all that, and more immersion in the games. Especially, there was one game that I was playing that you had to hold the controller sideways and use it as a spray paint can, which was absolutely great. I loved it, but it was a little hard holding the controller like that and having it be accurate in that. The reason why I don't like this controller is, one, the joysticks. They're low, they're in the standard PlayStation positioning and all that. And for me, holding a controller like this is very uncomfortable. Especially since the joystick is, no, the left joystick especially, is the main one that you're using for movement and all that. Just holding my arm like this just does not work for a terribly long time, especially when I'm then going up to the D-pad and back down, up and down. It just isn't good. Also, holding this when I have to use assistive devices like splints, wraps, and all that is very difficult. Now you're noticing I'm holding it with my left hand, but I have to hold it really low in order to hold it with this large splint of mine. I use different splints. This is probably not the thickest splint I have, but it's one of the more restrictive ones. It's got the brace on the top, brace on the bottom. I can't really move the wrist around. I use gloves sometimes. I've got other splints like these wraps I use, or a less restrictive version of this type of splint. And I'll jump back and forth between the splints depending on how the pain level is on my wrist or what type of movement initiates that pain. So with this controller, what I find is if I'm wearing this type of splint, I can't hold it with my left hand easily. It's just not easy for me to hold. And also then grip it so I can use the joystick properly and all that. So this controller for me doesn't work too well. So I don't really use it too much. When my nephews come up, this will be one controller that they'll use and all that. But I've got another controller that I use for the PlayStation that I'll show a little bit more in the future of the video here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the basic Xbox One controller. Now again, the same thing with the Xbox controllers. The designs don't change much from the Xbox 360 to Xbox One and the new Xbox, I think it's X or S. The controller design is very similar, so you can take this kind of across the Xbox platforms and all that. I like this controller better than the PlayStation controller. It's easier to grip. Now you can get this in a lot of different colors, a lot of different textures and all that. For me, the coloring on this one was a little not good, especially when we're looking at the letter keys over here. They tend to blend a lot, and so if you have a color blindness issue, it just can be a bit of an issue with that. Again, I bought this for my nephews. I don't use this one too much, but it's, if I had to use a controller, either the PlayStation or the Xbox, I would choose the Xbox. And the reason being is the joysticks. The joysticks here, with the left joystick being higher where the D-pad is on the PlayStation controller, makes it a lot easier on my hand to work with. Also, I can actually hold this controller a lot easier if I'm wearing my heavier splint. See, I can do this fairly easy with this controller. If I went to do that with a PlayStation controller, I would probably drop it. So I can actually use this one a lot more than the PlayStation controller. So other than that, differences between the two controllers are about this, there's not many other differences. So, this is a good controller in my opinion. Next controller I'm going to review is another Xbox controller. It's the Xbox Pro controller. Now, before I continue with these controllers, the next three controllers I'm going to be kind of reviewing are Pro controllers. They are more expensive controllers. They are ones that you can configure, that you can adjust, and that come with extra buttons and are generally more expensive than a regular controller. So just a little price disclaimer on that. These controllers can range anywhere between $100 to $200 depending on the model that you get. So I want to go ahead and review the Xbox Pro controller. Now, this one used to be my favorite, my all-time favorite. And so I'm going a little while order than what I was originally intending, but I'll explain why in just a moment. It's very similar to the Xbox controller in feel. I love the weight of it. It's a little heavier. But I also love the fact that they've got these little triggers down on the bottom of the controller. Now, you'll see that with this one, I only have two here. There's actually two more that go above it. And this is one of my main criticisms of this controller. I can't use those because when I am using the controller, I'm often tripping over those top paddles, those top triggers. And so I had to remove them, which it's easy to remove them. You just pull it off and it's just a magnetic thing that just goes back in there and holds in and you can use it. So it's actually really easy to configure. What I love about these bottom triggers, though, is that you can map them to be the joystick clicks. So that's one thing with controllers that I have a hard time with, is depending on the controller, clicking the R3 or the L3 buttons. That's if I'm moving around, especially if I have the joystick angled, I can't click it too easily. So I actually remapped those to the bottom paddles here, and so I don't even have to do it. I just click on that. So this used to be my all-time favorite. The other thing I don't like about it is its durability. Before I continue, it's made out of really good components. I mean, the feel of it and all that is really good. The only issue I have are the triggers. They last a little over a year for me. So this is actually my second controller I had to buy in the past 2 years. And I've been noticing that the trigger, especially the right trigger, if you're using first-person shooter games in that, do become a little less sensitive as it wears. So that's one of the main design flaws that I have with this. Other than that, one thing that I love about these is it comes with a hairpin trigger. And 1 second. And so what you can do with this is you can adjust these little levers here, and what it does is it locks the trigger here, so you don't have to press it fully in order to activate it. Now, there is a bit of an issue with it depending on the game, especially games that rely on the triggers for like running or movement. If you do the hairpin triggering, sometimes it doesn't allow you to run, so you have to be a little careful with that. The other thing I really like about this controller is the joysticks and the D-pad. They're customizable, so you can actually pull off the joystick pads and replace them. They've come with different style heads and different lengths. Now, unfortunately, I lost the case that came with this. I can't really find it. It's around here somewhere. I haven't used this one in a while. So I can't really show those, but I love the D-pad on this, especially the little bow-shaped D-pad. It's just really kind of nice on the finger and easy to use and all that. So, and they're magnetically held on, so A+ on the controller, even with the design flaws and all that. It's one that I highly recommend if you can't get any of the future controllers and all that. The next controller I'm going to review is the Astro C40 controller. Now this is the PlayStation controller alternate that I use, and I also will use this on the computer on occasion. It is both wireless and wired. I did lose the dongle for the wireless component of it, so I have to use it wired. But this is actually a really good controller. I actually really like it. The feel of it is very similar to the Xbox Pro controller. And what I really like about this is how you can customize it. It's got the same button triggers on the bottom. So again, I use these for the triggers, or for the pressing of the joystick buttons and all that. But what I really like about this is that you can actually move your joystick D-pads around. So it comes with a little Allen wrench here that you can actually take this top plate off. And I will show this just real quick here. So there's 4 screws at the top that you just remove or loosen. And when you tighten it and when you put it back together, you don't over tighten it. You know, it's just finger tight. And it just comes right off. And what you can do is you can actually pull out like the joysticks and the D-pad here and swap them around. So say, you know, I wanted the PlayStation configuration with the joysticks lower is easier on you. With this controller, you can actually remove the D-pad, swap that joystick down, and then put the D-pad back up where it is on the regular PlayStation controller. Now, if you're not used to this, a couple little things on it. If you look at the base of this here, what you're going to notice is that there's this little notch at the bottom here. That matches the notch in here, so aligning it is a little bit of a funky item. My main criticisms on this one, though, is when using it on the PC, especially with Steam. It's a PlayStation controller. So the icons on the buttons over here are the symbols that PlayStation uses and not the letters that Xbox uses. In some Steam games, though, however, when I went to use this with my Xbox Pro controller broke, it always mapped it as, or pretended it was an Xbox controller. So when I was getting the button prompts on the screen, if I had to look down and see where my finger was, if I was having a hard time with my thumb at the time, it was a little bit of a disconnect with that. I haven't found any good workarounds on that. It didn't always do that. Something changed with the driver, I think, that caused some issues. So I don't use this one on the computer all that much anymore. I use it just mainly on my PlayStation. The other issue I have with it is, again, with this one, you can replace the joystick pads. In fact, the controller comes with a really nice gaming case, travel case with it. And in the travel case, you do have other thumb pads that you can use that are different textures, or even at different lengths. You know, here's one that's a little bit of a longer base to it and all that. And so you can swap those out, but it's not as easy as the Xbox Pro controller. These use friction to hold in, they're not magnetic, so it takes a little bit more of an effort to pull it off. And as you can see, by doing that, it does cause a little bit of an issue with the mechanics of that. It eventually works its way out, especially when you put it back on. But you know, just to me, that's a little bit of you know, I think they could have designed that a little bit better using magnets and to get that to be a little easier to swap out. If they did that and then fix the driver's issue, that would be a really good controller. So the next controller I'm going to review is the Razer Wolverine controller. Now, the one thing I might say before I show it off is that there are 3 different types of this controller. There's the Razer Wolverine, there's the Tournament Edition, and then there's the Ultimate Edition. The one that I have is the Ultimate Edition, and it's different than the Tournament and the regular one. The regular one, I think, just has the buttons on the bottom. The Tournament adds another set of buttons, and then the Ultimate has 6 configurable buttons on it. And so depending on the version you get, you'll get some different capabilities. But I got the Ultimate just because there were some features that I saw on it that I really liked. So here's the Razer Wolverine controller. Now this is becoming my favorite controller. I'm really loving it. It does have its flaws, but I'm quickly kind of getting used to them and more adjusted to it, and it's really becoming a really good controller. Um, so again, it's an Xbox controller, so the look and the feel of it is just like a regular Xbox controller and the Xbox Pro controller. What's really kind of nice is you got a lighting effect that you can configure on it. And with the Ultimate controller, what you get is you get the two buttons over here that you can program, and you got four buttons on the bottom that you can program. Now these buttons are not removable. So like with the PlayStation, oh, not the PlayStation, my bad, the Xbox Pro controller, I could remove those bottom levers, and if I wasn't using both of the bottom ones. With this one, they're built right in, so you can't really remove it. The other thing that you've got is you've got a quick control panel here. So if you are using this on the Xbox, you can put your mic through this and mute the mic and do some mic control right from the controller, which I kind of like. The things with this one though is that the feel of it, it's light. It's a lighter controller, which is kind of nice, but I kind of like that weight of the Xbox Pro controller, just because if I'm using a splint like this, it just that weight helps me hold it a little bit. Again, this is just a wired controller, so it doesn't have that battery pack in it for the weight. The other thing with this is the rumble, the vibration feature on it. When it rumbles, it's a let's get ready to rumble. I mean, I've never had a controller that has almost shook the house when it goes off when it's on its highest setting. I've actually had to set it to like 4 or 5 in order for it to be comfortable. And it really shakes when it goes off on the highest setting, which is nice. I mean, some people like that, some people don't. I'm one of those that like a nice strong vibration, but not something that's going to shake the house apart when it goes off. The other nice thing with it is it's got two different areas where it vibrates. It's got the vibration mechanics in the grip, but it also has the haptic feedback on the triggers. And so you get different feeling. It's a much better feeling and more engaging, more an interactive feeling too when you're using that control, that ability with it. Again, you get the hairpin triggers with this, which is really nice. But what I really love about this are these buttons here. So with this controller here, you can program these 6 buttons to be any of the other buttons on the controller. So the way that I run this is I run these 2 buttons here to be the upper bumper buttons up here. So the right one here and then the left one here. So that way, when I am using the trigger buttons in that, rather than doing this constant up, which is a bit of a good stretch, especially if you have arthritic fingers, all you have to do is just come in and hit these, and it's a very little movement. In fact, I can actually put my fingers right on those and use both, very easily, which I really like. For the buttons down here, I program these upper ones here to be the presses of joysticks, because when I'm holding this, you can see naturally that's where my fingers hit right there. So that's a very easy click for me. These ones down here, I use a special feature that's built for the Razer Wolverine software, and it's called Focus and Agility. And so focus, what that does is it desensitizes the joysticks, and so it makes them less sensitive, so your movement's slower. So if you're using like a sniper rifle in the game, or you need something that has a much more precise movement, you can press this, and while holding that, it slows down that joystick, which is really kind of a nice ability. Likewise, the agility makes it more sensitive. So if you need to move faster or turn faster and all that, you can press and hold the one button that you assign that and move around a bit faster. So for a controller, that is really important. I absolutely love those features. I've been using them a lot in the games I play. My main criticisms on this one is the software. So I feel Razer really missed a wonderful opportunity with their software on here. I love Razer products. I have their keyboard, I'm using their mic, I have their Keo Pro webcam that I'm using to record this video. I've got their ring light here to help with the lighting in my virtual meetings and all that. I'm getting to be using more and more Razer products because I really love that Synapses 3 program that you can control everything through a single program and modify everything, with the exception of this. This, you need to download a program through the Microsoft Store if you're using this on the PC to configure it. Their directions for that are very confusing. On the card that comes with this, the instructions on the installation on the PC, they tell you to go to their website. Their website tells you to download Synapses 3, and Synapses 3 says, what controller? And so doing a little more research into it, there's a Razer Synapses for Xbox app in the Microsoft Store that you download, and once you download that and open it, it will see the Synapses, the Wolverine controller, and you can configure it. You have to use the controller to program it, but that's one of my main criticisms for it. The other thing that I kind of like and don't like about it, it's a good feel. It feels like it's good quality in there. The buttons here, the X, Y, B, and A buttons here are very light in their press. So if you're used to the Xbox controllers, you know, it's a different feel. It's a lighter feel. So there are times I'm pressing it and I don't feel the press and all that. I'm on the fence with liking it and not liking it, because I like it in the fact that it gives me a faster response time, but I don't like it because I don't feel the button press as much. It's too easy to press the buttons sometimes. The other thing that I like and don't like is, like the Astro C40 and the Xbox Pro controllers, you can change out the joystick pad. They've got the same type of pads where you can have different sizes, different texturing to them. Just like the Xbox Pro controller, these are magnetically held on, so they're very easy to pull off and swap out and all that. The D-pad, however, I don't like the design of it. I use one that is similar to the PlayStation, to the Xbox, you know, Bull one. I love the feel of this. This just has a better feel to it. This almost feels cheap in some ways. It's a little difficult to pull off, but what it is, it's this thin little plate here. And you can just pop that on. It's again held on magnetically, and just like the Astro and the Xbox Pro controller, it does come with a nice little case, and in that case they do have the other joy pads, and they do have the other D-pad plate that you can put on it that kind of simulates the other style D-pad that just has the north, south, east, west buttons on it. But you know, again, it's that thin little disc. It's, you know, it just feels a little cheap. You know, for a really high-end controller like the Wolverine, I was kind of expecting a little bit of a better thing with just that component, but you know, that's a minute detail in my book. The other really nice thing that I like about this controller, especially one reason why I got the Ultimate, is I can change the profiles. I can have two main profiles on it that I can switch between. I can also do a quick adjustment to it. So if I'm in game and say my elbow snaps or my wrist really starts hurting and I can't hold my hand in a particular way, and so say like hitting that Y button becomes a lot more difficult, I can quickly pause the game and on the fly remap that Y button to one of these bottom or even the two bumpers over here, so I can actually adjust the controller to meet my current condition, which I really love. And then I can also, if I say have two profiles programmed already, if I notice that two different settings will work for pretty much any situation I find myself in, you can press a button right here and you'll notice that the color changes on this, and that's the second profile. And so I can change back and forth between those two profiles mid-game, which I really love about this controller. So again, this is becoming my quick favorite. If you are not a serious gamer, if you are just looking for a really good PC controller, Xbox controller, I recommend the Wolverines. Now, you don't need to get the Ultimate. You can go with the Tournament. The difference with the Tournament is that it does not have this little quick control panel here for the profiles, and on the bottom it only has a single set of triggers. It doesn't have the four triggers. It's only got two. And I believe the original, I'm not sure if the original has the bottom triggers or not. But if you go to Razer's website and look at the Wolverine controller, they have the different editions of the Wolverine controller there. So thank you for watching this video. I hope that you found it helpful. If you have any questions, always feel free to leave a comment. And I'm hoping to be releasing future videos about different technology, especially with computers. I'm a computer programmer. I work in customer support, so I'm going to be releasing videos pretty soon regarding different types of keyboards that I use, and depending on how my hands are, how my arms are, and all that. I'll be releasing a video regarding remote office setups, and technology that you can use to make it so that you're almost there in the office virtually. And I'll be releasing some other videos in the future. So if you have any questions, feel free to post a question in the comments down below. If you like the video, please like the video, and you have a wonderful and safe day.